So welcome to Lily High on Life, and today I am thrilled to introduce you to John Thorn. John, thank you for coming on Lily High on Life.
It's a pleasure, Lily. I can't wait to have a chat.
So for those of you that don't know John yet, he's a musician and a composer and has done some amazing things in his life, and as all of us has led a pretty wonderful life to this point. So John, thank you for joining us.
It's fun to be here already, Lily. Yes.
And I always like to start with what my guests are currently doing, what they're involved in, and what gives them pleasure today.
Today, well, my life's taken a bit of a turn this year. Similar to you, I had to come back from overseas to look after my parents, and my mother sadly passed away in March. But since then, I've actually picked up a job which I'm calling it my first middle class job in about 25 years, and at the moment I'm employed at Mentone Grammar School as a piano accompanist and rehearsal pianist, working with all the kids there, and but quite a change compared to what I was doing before. But I'm enjoying it immensely, and so I've sort of put a few of the projects that I had lined up sort of on hold, and I'm just enjoying going along and helping kids with their music.
That sounds fabulous. And how did that job even come about?
Well, it's my old school. I went there a long time ago, and I have worked there a little bit over the years. I know some of the teachers there, but my friend Gavin rang up and said, "Oh, do you want to come and help with the production of Grease?" and so I'm there, and I'm also employed to accompany the opera chorus. They've got a wonderful opera chorus there, and they've also got some other bands that I play with, and then I sort of, helping out where I can.
Wow. It sounds like, and especially since you're involved with music, like it really has always been a passion that you found when you were at school.
I guess, yeah. Music, so my career, I was music was part of it, but I think when I was at school, I was more focused probably on sport and on maths and a few of those other subjects. I remember writing in a diary when I was about 15. My things in life were, cricket and maths, and then music wasn't. I was writing songs, but I never sort of thought that would be my career. I always thought that would be a hobby that I'd probably use while I was an industrial chemist or a maths teacher or something else like that. But I was just very fortunate, after when I got to university, and I was doing science at university, but I was also playing in jazz bands and playing for musical theatre and that kind of stuff. And then I thought, well, let's just give this a go, and took a little chance and kept on.
But you're actually playing piano in the church as a young age.
Yes.
6 or 7.
Oh no! I started. I was in the choir when I was about 6 or 7, and I started piano lessons when I was 7. And my father, who was a Church of England minister, he got me behind the organ when I was about 12 or 13. So I was playing for the church services from that age.
And your first introduction, to piano, was through somebody who mentored you, was a piano teacher.
Yes.
For quite a while.
I only had him for about. His name's Nigel Kellaway, and he's a fascinating guy. And he was only very young when I had him, so I was 7 and a half. I think he might have been about 16 or 17, and he was a student at Camberwell Grammar School, where my father was the chaplain, and I think I mentioned this, but when I was about 7 years old, Dad took me along to an NDV concert, and Nigel was up there playing the piano, and also basically he was doing a Reg Livermore impersonation. That's probably the easiest way to describe it. And my eyes just went bug-eyed, and I'm going, oh my gosh, what's he up there? This is something that I really want to do. It was like one of those change moments in your life. You're going, oh, something's, I've never seen this before, and who is this? And I never witnessed that. And so I had lessons with him for about a year and a half, and then I never saw him again for another 7 years. We sort of found each other on Facebook, and by that stage he was living in Sydney, and The first time I saw him was actually I was on the piano at the Sydney Opera House doing a show that I sort of produced, and he was in the audience.
Wow.
So it was a lovely kind of way to sort of thank him, I suppose. But and then we've been friends since then, and
So that direction, even though you were going in a more academic direction, because that's what you were supposed to do.
Yes.
How did you get waylaid so directly and so much into the music that it actually took over?
Well...
Or did you even notice that it did?
I'm so grateful that I grew up without mobile phones, and I'm so grateful I grew up without the internet. Because I was living in Carrum, studying at Mentone, and I would come home every night if I didn't have sort of sport after school, and I would just go to the piano and. From about the age of 13 or 14, someone showed me how to play blues. So then I just sort of taught myself blues. So I would just sort of go home and I would use music as a bit of a therapy session just to sort of unpack, and express myself on the piano. And I'm sure if I had social media or iPads, I probably would have come home and just...
play games or
I'd
be
play games and be distracted. So music was useful for me, as an emotional purpose. But then I also got intrigued by composition, and so I started writing. I've sort of been writing, little bits of music since I was about 12, and I also had a dear friend who I met in primary school called Kathleen Maguire, and she's a fantastic musician, and we were in the same class together. She went to Mentone Girls, but we would catch the train home and we sort of start up a band, and we'd be writing songs, but it was very sort of competitive. It's good to have somebody, that you can say, oh, I've written this. I go, oh, okay, I better write something else. So Kathleen and I were writing songs, made a little pop band, and she's gone on to amazing things. She's now Dr. Kathleen Maguire. She's a conductor and
excuse me.
Yes, conductor and composer, and she's was in America for a long time.
Well, you went on to some pretty amazing things yourself, internationally as well as here in Australia.
I'm not sure if a lot of my stuff internationally has been that amazing, but I had some very, very lucky breaks when I was in my early 20s. I got to become the musician for theatre sports in the 80s in Melbourne, and
what does that mean?
Okay, so theatre sports is an improvised. It's a concept invented by Keith Johnson in Calgary, and it involves these improvisational theatre games that come together in a kind of like a tournament. So you have teams competing against each other in these particular improvised theatre games, and I was playing in a cabaret show, and the person in there said, "Oh, you'd be good at theatre sports." And so I said, "Oh, whatever it is." And there was a benefit night in Melbourne, and both the piano players who were normally playing for this thing, it was on at the Arts Centre by the time I joined at the Playhouse, and I was about 21 or so, and I had to fill in for some guys who were doing a benefit, and I got on there, and within a couple of minutes, someone on stage said, "Oh, you're good, yeah, you can be it." And then so I stayed with that for about 3 or 4 years. And I was just in the right spot at the right time, because that was when the Melbourne comedy scene was very, very healthy, and the crowds just came and flocked, and we'd start at the Playhouse at the Victorian Arts Centre every Sunday, and then they had finals which went to the Hamer Hall, and they were sold out. So every Sunday night, in my early 20s, I knew I would be rocking up to the Arts Centre, getting on stage, and getting a lot of love. I got to say, it was very nice.
Especially in your early 20s. I mean, there can be awkward years. What was it like getting so much positive reinforcement?
Very nice. I've had enough kudos to last me a lifetime already, so I'm not in. But it was, and it was great doing the show, but it was also great that I met some people in there, and then in the early 90s, a group of 4 of those actors asked me if I wanted to join them to do some shows, and then that little group called Troupe de Jour became a corporate entertainment group. So we would go along to corporations and show them how to do improvisation and do floor shows, and in those days businesses were I think they were encouraged to sort of spend money on professional development, and so we were getting flown around the country and doing all these wonderful gigs and stuff.
And I sort of get the sense that stuff came up and you just said yes. It was never really a problem.
Yeah. If I was going to give any advice to anyone starting out, I'd just say you got to say yes to everything. You got to do everything. Yeah, and I do love playing music, and I love making people happy, and I don't mind where it is or what it is, so. Yeah.
And your family was supportive of what you were doing?
Very supportive, yeah. My parents were really keen, and they would always come and they were very proud. I think it helped that I successfully finished the science degree and all that kind of stuff. I suppose I was trying to please them as well as pleasing myself, but they were always behind me. Yeah.
And they sound like really terrific times, but there were also a couple of hiccups. Well, I'll use the term hiccups, but there was some other things going on that weren't always that positive necessarily. When you were in your 20s?
When I was in my 20s, yes, I did have I had a positive, yes. I had a major, what would you say? I had a major breakdown, a major,
emotional,
emotional exhaustion. It's a pretty long story, but it was so I did a science degree, took a year off, and then I went back to university and did a composition degree. So I did a 4-year composition degree as well, and towards the end of that degree, in that last year, which was 1990, I was doing a full honours degree in composition, and but at the same stage I was still very, very busy with music, and I was playing in a band, and then I got asked to be the MD for a national television show, which the D Generation were doing, and I was also writing manically, and so I there was a lot of things going on in my head, and I was also pushing myself, ridiculously pushing. I was very ambitious, and unfortunately I developed this habit of doing all-nighters. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that expression.
Very much so. I tend to do my best work at night.
But this means like not sleeping.
Sleeping.
Yes. So I would, if I had an exam, or if I had a big assignment, or had to do a composition, I would just stay up and not sleep. And yeah.
Do you remember if you were feeling happy high or stress too much to do? Do you remember what kind of emotions and feelings you were experiencing at the time?
No, it was more. I think I got addicted to it. I mean, I just in the whole process of what I do, I think the biggest high I get is just the moment that you actually create something, and where there's nothing, and then 10 minutes later there's a song, or or whatever it is, and that's the biggest high. And so, like, even if I didn't have an assignment due or a composition due or anything like that, I would just stay up and write until, and I wouldn't go to sleep until I'd written something good, and I thought that was the way I was going to become, what I.
Did you sleep during the day after that, or?
No, you just. I was probably doing two sometimes three of them a week, and eventually that all caught up in a very, very, very big way.
Did you physically crash or mentally crash?
No, mentally crashed. Yeah.
What does that mean? What did that look like for you that you actually went to get help?
I didn't. In the end, I didn't get it. I was actually involuntarily admitted, so people around me realised I was pretty sick. The final thing happened actually when the first Gulf War broke out, and I think Channel 10 had CNN 24/7, and I started watching that, and I I didn't sleep for 7 days.
Wow.
So I'm not you. I do not recommend this for anybody.
And did you internally feel yourself that there was a problem, or was it really other people that had to step in and intervene?
Yeah, no, I think internally, I mean, your brain starts going very, very fast and rapid, and you start connecting other things. It was described as a manic episode, so it was a full-on manic episode.
Okay.
Yes.
So you go from being this super happy, super bright, super obviously talented sort of guy that is on top of the world in many respects to this manic sort of situation.
Yeah.
How were you when you came out? What did you realise from all of that once they let you come home and once you started again?
The sleep is very important, but I know when I came out, I was severely depressed. You know, it was the big high and then the very big low, and you know, when I was in a hospital, they said, "Oh, it's going to take a year." You know, after you
was that
get
the
out.
first time you'd experienced depression?
Yeah, yes, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm pretty sensitive, I suppose. So, you know, I mean, I've had some pretty heavy sort of, romantic kind of depressions, in that way, but not in the sort of the catatonic,
This was real.
Yeah, that you can't talk and you think the best days of your life are over and you can't and you just feel totally inadequate and you can't even start a conversation.
How do you come out of it?
I think the way I came out of it, because I was on a lot of drugs by the time I did come out. I was on, tranquilizers and antidepressants and lithium and all that sort of things.
Doctors used to give you a lot of those.
Yeah, as soon as you get into hospital, they just start dosing you up because that's. I think the thing that sort of turned me around was. It was a composer friend of mine from Melbourne University called Mary Finsterer, and she was just teaching a few kids in a music school, and she had to go away, and she said, "Oh, John, do you want to just start teaching some kids?" And I was a bit nervous, but I said, "Yeah, sure." And I hadn't really taught piano before, but I each week I had to go along, and teach 4 or 5 people how to play the piano, and having a purpose and also realizing that you're useful. I think that's just in the last week or so. I'm thinking, just try and be useful. That's kind of
yes, it's important.
Yeah, and and it gives you a bit of I won't say confidence, but
because a lot of people, and this is normal, to feel a bit down or depressed.
Yeah.
Now, I'm the most positive person in the world. I very, very rarely get down or depressed at all. I just don't. A whole lot of reasons, but a lot of people do, and I do realise that it's a normal way of being. So, but people try to hide it, and even in our short discussion here, it's like, no, this is not, anything that I really, really want to talk about. But it's like, so, and the reason I'm pushing it and asking is so that, because a lot of people can relate. And so I want them to be able to also relate to the fact that it's not a forever sentence and it can change.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It's funny. I don't really. It's one of my big. I don't really regret going into hospital and doing that. It was sort of part of the journey, I suppose.
Absolutely.
And I was pretty typical. But when they said, "Oh, you're the typical case, mid-20s, sensitive, ambitious, all that kind of creative," Yeah, that's.
And I'm a bit shocked that they said it's going to take you a year, or they told you that. I hate it when people do that. They
were right. It was. Yeah, very dark. Yeah,
it gave you a reality check. Do you ever sort of dip back in there sometimes?
I haven't for much. I never had a relapse. You have flashbacks, but they weren't that pretty. But in terms of the recovery process, because I think I'm maybe one of the rare ones in some ways. I mean, I haven't had another episode, and actually, a lovely friend of mine said, he didn't sort of say you're crazy. You said, John, you've displayed the ability to have a manic episode.
And it is. It's just an experience.
It's an experience, yeah.
And I think one of the things for me personally is you got to ask yourself in life generally the right questions. So when I feel that I'm feeling a bit low or a bit down, or even when something's happened and something's made me cry and I'm really upset, just say, what do I need to do to get out of this? What do I need to do to get out of this?
That's a good
and
way.
Just keep repeating it until my brain goes to a place that's helpful.
That's a very good mantra, Lily. I'm going to borrow that or steal it off you, I think.
My pleasure. And the other one, when I go to sleep at night, while I'm sleeping, my body is healing. Even if there's nothing wrong, while I'm sleeping, my body's... And I believe that works because...
I think it's very true, yeah.
A lot of friends who are fitter and more active and more everything than me, and things start to go wrong with your body as you get older. So this is an easy way to kind
I'm
of
sleeping,
fix.
my body is healing, okay.
So let me just ask you, you not only have you been fully immersed in the music world, but you've done everything from teaching kids to opera, to Greece, to cabaret, to... what's wrong with you? No, it's not what's wrong with you. It's like, explain to me how and what it is that allows you to be so good in so many different areas and genres of music.
There's a lot of genres that I'm not good at, but I think I'm good at it as an accompanist. I like to listen. I like to make sure the people that I'm playing for have the best time they can, and so there's a lot of accompanying kind of gigs that go around. And I also love having I love having like the best seat in the house when I'm working with fantastic performers and people. So I'm a very lucky guy.
And I must say that we met when the wonderful Alexis Fishman was in Melbourne and did two such different concerts, both of which you accompanied her for. One was Amy Winehouse. The other one was Boy Chicks on Broadway.
Boy Chicks on Broadway, yeah. I had a bit more fun with the Amy Winehouse than the Boy Chicks. But I mean, it was a pleasure playing with Alexis. She's fantastic, and the Boy Chick show, which was all the Jewish Broadway composers. They were hard. It was hard.
Oh, really?
Oh no, that was hard.
Because Gershwin is one of your favourite.
Gershwin's one of my favourites. Yeah. I don't mind playing Gershwin, but she had a lot of the more modern musical theatre, and those composers like writing a lot of dots, a lot of complicated things. I'm glad we got through that. Yeah, that was
And I really have to ask you what it was like growing up as the son of a preacher man, because your relationship with religion is complicated to say to the least. But as a father who was very much involved in the church, and as a child who was growing up and making your own way in the world, was that relationship difficult? Was it different?
Well, it's obviously different from people who don't do that, and it's you probably the hardest thing is that people, once they know that, may get impressions of you or judge you or think you should be this because your father's that kind of thing.
In terms of things you did, and in terms of the as a child growing up, and your school friends were maybe doing some things that you knew you weren't supposed to or that were not right, how do you marry that with having the love and respect and everything for your parents, which you obviously do?
I had a very mild good up. I don't think I really drank alcohol until I went to university, maybe once or twice. We didn't have any. I was a goody-goody.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I'm the oldest of 5.
Right.
So, and my youngest brother's 16 years younger than me, so we had a pretty big family. The religious thing hasn't. When I left home, I sort of stopped attending church, and and my father had a difficulty. He had a very difficult parish experience during my sort of late teens and early 20s, which sort of made me question organised religion a lot as well. I've sort of, I wouldn't say I've come back here and then, but I actually like the experience of going to church, and I like to be able to sort of sit quietly and meditate, and or just think about your life and that sort of stuff. But I'm not a person of, I was going to say great faith or not, but I mean I like to question a lot of the. I like to study religion, and I'm a really big history buff, and I'm really into the histories of religions and how they work and stuff like that.
Did you ever have conversations with your dad about religion?
No,
and faith?
No. We weren't sort of we'd say grace at dinner, but he wouldn't be doing.
Would you say that you and your siblings were similar in terms of the way you thought about things and the way you related to each other? Because siblings can be quite different.
Yeah, we're all pretty different. None of us attend church, regularly. Yeah, I mean, we all went to church when we were in the family. We didn't sort of stand up and rebel against our parents that way. But
and was it your mum or your dad that were the greatest influences as you were growing up?
Well, my father was. He's a very enthusiastic person, very encouraging, and in sport and in music and in groups and that sort of stuff. But I think in terms of having a model to live by, it'd be my mum, who was she was definitely the more saintly of the thing. We always thought that she should have been the minister rather than my father. Nothing against my father, but my and he was a very hardworking parish priest. He sort of alternated between being a teacher and a chaplain and then a parish priest, but he was always very hardworking and yeah.
And your relationship with him today?
Oh well,
now that your mum's passed.
No, my mum's passed. My dad's in a care home in Balnarring. He's got Parkinson's, but he's not. He still loves to chat. He'll be ringing me up a lot, and I think it has changed just because of a few circumstances in the last 5 or 10 years. He's sort of a few little, these things come out of his mouth and going, really? I don't know if I want to follow that through.
My mum's 91. You just let them do and say whatever they want to say.
You can't change them. You can definitely not change them at this stage of their lives, and
yeah, and they are what they are.
Yeah.
So you've been married and you're in a long-term relationship at the moment. What surprised you about your divorce?
What surprised me about my divorce? I don't know. I'm actually I've been married twice.
Oh,
but
okay.
But I have a lovely girlfriend at the moment. So,
and you've got 2 girls.
I have two.
The same wife.
Yes, from Fiona. And the first marriage was 20 years, and the second marriage was I was together with Jane for 10 years. And
how did so you got married at a relatively in your 20s or
late 20s?
Late 20s.
Yeah.
So you were more mature, and love, or everyone was doing it, or
love. Yeah. No, I was.
And how did that change? How did that relationship change to a point where you had to separate?
Oh well, everybody changes. Don't they?
Tell me a little bit about what it was, and especially in hindsight, what you feel you could have done differently. And it's more about people who are listening who might be in relationships, whether they're short or long term. How did you work through it to the point where you decided, no, it really is going to be better for us to split?
I don't know. It's hard to give that sort of advice.
That's why it's not advice. It's how did you feel?
How did I feel?
And what was your perception of how she was feeling?
Well, I think the communication had broken down a long way before that, so I'm not sure how she felt.
What does that mean, the communication had broken down? For you, what was it? How did the communication break down, and what stopped?
I think with both my marriages that sort of have finished, I think a lot of it might have to do with me, because I'm a very driven, focused, creative sort of person, and so that's who I am. But when that side, isn't respected, or maybe you just want to do that and you don't listen to, you're not aware of the other people around you, and then they stop getting interested in your creative side, and then I think that's about as much as I can probably share, and talk about it like that. Because everybody's different, and
look, I totally respect and really like the fact that you take responsibility for it. It was probably me. The truth is, it's two sides, and I don't believe there's a genuine fault. I just believe that you learn from it.
Yeah.
So, do you think it's helping in your current relationship? Do you think what you learnt before?
Yes. Oh, totally. Yeah.
So how do you do things differently?
Well, I think the thing is, you got to let little things slide. You just don't want to get obsessed by little things, and and you got to accept that everybody's are going to be different. My girlfriend at the moment, we were actually very, very good friends for 13 or 14 years before we started. So I would be at her place, just because I was going to have a good time and have a good chat, and we were going to share things that we love together, and so I got to know her very well before we started dating, and similarly with her too. So that's always helpful when you're really good friends. But I do not want to pretend to offer advice on people's relationships.
Now, she's a performer also.
She is. She's a great, amazing performer. Yes.
And that wonderful high that you feel when you, as you said, when you've not just finished writing a song, but even when you finish a performance and you come off stage, that's feeling good. I mean, not many people feel that good on as regular a basis as you would.
No, I'm very, very lucky. You can't believe that you just, you go to work, and then at the end, once you finish work, people clap and applaud you, and they've got smiles on their faces, and they're saying how wonderful you are. And
you get paid
for that. So, tell me a better job than that. I don't know.
So, since you're both performers and you are in that really positive, feeling good feeling a lot of the time as well, how do you come down from that into normal? And do you believe, because you don't know any different, but do you believe that it makes you more positive and happy than the majority of people who go to an office job, for example, every day?
I think you need to be really grateful for that, for the privilege to do what we do, and if you're grateful for that, I think that'll help. Some people, everyone's different. Some people might be just come off stage and they just might say, "Oh, it was the worst show I've ever done," and they're not. They don't understand how lucky they are, or they ignore that perhaps, or they have, everyone's got their own sort of ways of doing that. I mean, I was so lucky that when I was at the time when I started off in the business, which was in the mid '80s and stuff, that there was so much work around and in Melbourne, and I was just getting these weekly or almost nightly highs of going on stage and playing in my own original jazz bands or accompanying great performers or doing theatre sports and I remember that I used to, if I didn't get it, I'd feel a bit empty. You can get you kind of got to watch it. It is like a drug. You can if you go on. You can get so high the next day you're actually feeling low because I guess it's all the chemicals or whatever is buzzing in your brains that giving you this sort of elation, and then the next day you go, oh, I feel I'm actually quite down. The body's adjusting. Yeah.
And then how does that work also with your relationships with your siblings and your parents, because they know you and that's real stuff as well?
From a young age, I was knocked around. They were. They're not going to. They're going to put you in your place pretty fast. I think I grew up in a family with a lot of strong women, and I don't think they were.
They didn't put up with.
They didn't. But yes.
Any others performers?
Oh yeah. And I'm not the most famous person in my family. That's for sure. No, my sister Helen, who's she's living in London now, but she's a big comedy star and has got a very successful business podcast and comedy career, and she's doing very well.
And you all keep in touch with each other regularly?
Yeah. No, it's a good gang. Yeah, which is a great blessing, because I know there's some families that don't. I think we've all learnt that. I think that's what sort of maybe our parents also wanted to instill this a good solid family unit, and having celebrating holidays and festivities and stuff like that.
So of course I have to ask you, how did having children change you? I mean, emotionally, but also in who you were as a person. And how does it continue to change you? Because having them is one thing, but then watching them grow is one of the greatest.
Oh yeah, no, that's the most wonderful thing that's probably ever happened to me. I think having kids and teaching them, and then they teach you. It's all, and then watching them grow and guiding them through life and really celebrating their successes and helping them when you can. And
so do you remember any revelations that you had as they came into the world or as they were growing, in terms of, oh shit, I better do this more now, or maybe I should think about this more now? What were the sort of either practical or just thoughts that you had that changed you?
Oh no, yes, they just become the most important things in your life, and
instead of you. I mean, was that, or you just never were, or what are those what are your priorities these days?
That's a good question. What are my priorities? Health and happiness are pretty. Health and happiness and friends are I think that helps you, doesn't it? Yeah.
Have friends changed, or have your priority with how you spend your time changed in recent years, or are they changing?
Yeah, I guess it depends on how much time you have, and I have actually moved a lot lately, because I had I was in London, and then Jane and I went to Somerset over lockdown, and then I was back in London and back. And when it's sort of hard to. I've sort of had to sort of adjust in new places and find friends.
How do you adjust? You just do it, or are you actually aware of that you need to think or behave in different ways to adjust to different situations?
No, I don't think I have to. I don't think I have to change. I like to meet new people and find out what their passions are, and share those, and talk to them about that, and then I like going on. I like doing walks. I like going on walks and having talks.
Do you listen to things when you're walking, or
all the time? Yeah, I'm a podcast addict. Yeah, I'm just.
And you mentioned that you were a history buff. Well, you're more than that, actually, because when I was just doing a bit of reading and preparing for this interview, I thought, God, I'd love to sit down with this man for hours and talk about philosophy and talk about history, and because a lot of that you put into songs that you came up with as well.
Well, the show that you saw, which was an existential songbook show, that came about when I was in lockdown and walking through the beautiful fields of Somerset. I've always been a bit of a history buff, and then I kind of wanted to sort of branch out into philosophy and read a bit. I haven't done courses on that, but I like putting myself in the shoes of people a long time ago, and I don't want to judge them from our vantage point. I want to sort of judge them from, what were they exposed to, or what were their conditions?
God, you're not a very good woke person, are you?
What?
You're not going to pull down statues. Jeez.
I'm not going to pull down statues. No. Well, listen, if they're worth pulling down, I'll pull them down. But I'm not going to let any
non-judgmental.
Well, I don't know. One of the first courses I did at uni was the history of astronomy, and I kind of like the idea of before television, people had people's ideas a lot would just they'd just look up at the sky at night and try and figure out what that meant. And where, and then the stories, and trying to analyse it, because I don't think that we're any smarter than the people from 15,000 years ago. I think people were Yeah, I mean, even when I watch movies on TV and I look at when they were made, which was before I was even born, it was like, what? They were able to do this, and I wasn't even born yet, and they had these types of skills and thought about this stuff. We've lost a lot of skills. Actually, I'll just say that I haven't written songs for a few months. I'm getting a bit itchy, but I've had a few titles pop in my head, and one of them, which I'm kind of, which is my current title I'm working on is I'm beginning to regret the Industrial Revolution. So that's.
Have you read Ayn Rand?
No, I haven't read it.
Atlas Shrugged. If that's where your mind is going now, highly recommend you sit down with Atlas Shrugged.
Atlas Shrugged. I'm aware of Ayn Rand, or Ayn Rand.
Ayn Rand.
I'm aware of Ayn. I remember watching a movie about the architect. What was that called? I remember I really liked that one. I think she based on Frank Lloyd Wright, wasn't it? It was a.
There were two. Yes, there were two. Two of her books were iconic. Atlas Shrugged and the Architect one.
It might have been the Architect one. Yeah. And I remember I did enjoy that. But I do, yeah.
But Atlas Shrugged is all about the Industrial Revolution and a lot of what's going on now as well. John, this has been absolutely delightful as I have to bring this to a close.
No worries, Lily.
And maybe one day when I'm doing a different podcast, we can talk about philosophies and philosophers and a lot of other wonderful things that you seem very involved with.
I've got a little bit of knowledge about a lot of things, Lily.
Love it.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I had a good time.
And good.